Hey, Nikki, thanks for joining us today. As we're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
I'm Nikki Calhoun. I'm a huge follower of yours. I've been following you for a few years now. Thank you so much for having me. Reside in Arizona. I'm a mom of three boys. I started my career after college at Southwest Airlines, worked for there for a few years, got to know how to really talk to customers and empathize with customers. And from that stint, I moved into healthcare as a patient advocate. So I was really helping families and patients get to the care that they needed, and learned early on that I was really good at talking to people. And from there, I went into sales. And I've been in sales. I'm a newbie. I've been in sales for only 4 years, but I've been told to get into sales all my life. So here I am.
How do you like it?
I love sales. A lot of folks tell me I make it look easy. I am able to get a lot of meetings, meet new people, but from the get-go, since I was a young girl, I've never been shy. My mom, if she were alive, she would tell you that I talk to everybody, even strangers, when she told me not to. So, I really love the people. I love getting to know them. I love to hear their history, where they come from. And so I really enjoy it. A lot of my peers tell me that I make it look easy. And I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's easy for me to talk to people. And so I'm really comfortable with that. And I'm able to get a lot of meetings, get a lot of sales. My company's happy with me. But overall, I love my job. And I feel like that shows through the conversations I have with my customers. They can hear it in my tone. And I have the ability to really build rapport and trust early on because of that comfort level and the way that I project how I like my job and what I do.
And it sounds like that Southwest experience was helpful as far as learning empathy and trying to put yourself in the client's situation, what they're going through, and how to solve the problem.
Absolutely. Southwest Airlines experience really paved a way for the way that I talk to folks and empathize with them. In the airlines, as you know, as probably a traveler and everyone that's listening, it can become very stressful for the folks that are working at the airport. And you really have to put on a creativity hat and really put yourself in the traveler's shoes and empathize with them and make sure, you're meeting their needs, even if the flight's canceled, delayed, what have you. So it really taught me a way to understand and listen. I feel like a lot of my sales success comes from strong listening skills, because I really have to hear them out. And I really had to do that in the airlines as well. And it was a lot tougher in the airlines because I was face to face with the folks. So I really had to be on my A game on a regular basis. Where on the phone, I can kind of mute myself out or hide myself, but at the airlines is much different.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't read your email while they're complaining about their flight being canceled, can you?
No, no, no multitasking at that point.
And who's the persona you sell to today? Is it financial
I
people, right?
sell
Is it?
to healthcare.
Yeah.
So I'm selling a healthcare solution. I'm in a hunter role, and I'm calling into pharmacy. It could be hospitals, clinics, ambulatory settings, surgery centers, infusion clinics, universities. And my product really helps in the clinical drug information space, for pharmacists and nurses to get the information they need to make the best decisions for their patients.
And so, what's the magic to getting these conversations started and these meetings?
Yeah, I know. Great question. So for me, I do a lot of digging. I do a lot of prep work, a lot of research. And when I say that, I mean, I try to go, to the highest level of research, in that I'll see who in my network I'm connected with, and see if there can be an introduction, a warm introduction, or even if I can't get a warm introduction, can you just tell me a little bit about this person? where do they come from? What are their likes? That sort of thing. Have just those types of conversations. I use Google a lot. So, I'll go in and say, if I were looking up you, Brian, I'd say, what's new with Brian Burns in the news? And so things would come up that maybe someone else wouldn't look at. And so when I get on the call with my prospect, I would be able to tell them things maybe they're not even aware that's published out there on the web. Like, oh, how did you know that? For example, I was talking to recently a nurse that was really kids driven in her career. And so I found out that she just got an award for a pediatric certification, and that her hospital also got that. And they got it because of her, right? So when I'm talking to her and I'm, just trying to build that rapport and making that connection between she and I'll bring that up. Everyone wants their ego stroked at some point. And if you can bring that up without them telling you about themselves, it really goes a long way.
Yeah. It does, doesn't it? No, why don't you just send 100 emails every day like everybody else?
Yeah, no. So I definitely send emails. So I can't say that I don't do that, but I definitely try to start with a phone call. And if I'm not able to get on the phone with them, I'll follow up in the email just stating why I called and that I'd like to get in touch with them. But I feel like just sending out a bunch of emails is not going to get me anywhere. I use LinkedIn a lot too. I think, I just try to use all different avenues and finding, where this person maybe hides. LinkedIn sometimes can be looked at as maybe that's just an easy thing to do, is reach out on, to someone on LinkedIn. And most people put out their best, their best foot forward on LinkedIn. This is who I am and this is what I do, right? So you kind of really have to do a little bit more digging to really understand what's in the heart of that person and what's important to them outside of LinkedIn, outside of their job, and that's where that whole strong listening comes in. If someone tells me that they went on they're getting ready to go on vacation, and then I hold a call with them a few weeks later, I made note of that. And I say, how was your vacation? What did you enjoy with it? And try to make that connection and that rapport before I just jump in and start talking. The other thing I feel like that really is helpful with what I do is I ask hard questions. So some of the people in my company called me the mayor because I am able to bring everybody together. And I've always done that both personally and professionally. I have a very large network on LinkedIn because when I'm on the airplane or I'm in the grocery store or I'm in line for my kids, event, I'm talking to people. Oh, what's your name? What do you do? And people always say, how are you just comfortable in asking them what they do? And I said, well, because I'm not asking them for, what they
Personal
do on a
information.
financial standpoint. I
Right.
want to know what they do, what makes them tick, what's their history, what are they about, and it's not a matter of selling them anything. I want to get to know them. And if we can be friends, great. If we can be colleagues, even better. If I can help you, get a job down the road, I'm happy to do that as well. So I'm always trying to put myself out there in that way as well.
So you're a connector, kind of. I don't know if you read the book, The Tipping Point. There's connectors,
Yes.
mavens, and salespeople. Connectors.
Yes, I'm definitely the connector. I connect people in every which direction, both personally and professionally. But I feel like that's my personal gains have put me in a really good position in the sales world as well, because I'm able to be super comfortable with just asking, do you have a budget? Has this been talked about? If they say no, well, what's your approach? How are you going to get this budget? And just helping them think about things maybe they didn't even account for, right? Maybe they weren't even thinking, oh, I need to get that approval or I need to get that approval. They just think on the one thing, the bottom line, I just need the CEO or the CFO to sign off on this. Well, there may be, hundreds or, even 20 steps before that they're not even thinking about. So it's up to me to help them uncover that so it's a win-win.
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking about before coming on today is most of the folks that I talk to want the product that I'm selling. It's a great product. It's going to help them in their day-to-day, right? But it's a matter of getting through some of those internal challenges and helping them jump those hurdles. Because sometimes I feel like some sales reps that I work with, or I've, been in contact throughout my short career in sales so far, is, they hear no, or they hear an objection and they just, kind of say, okay, well, I'll follow up with you later. No, unpack that a little bit. Ask some more questions. Like, try to understand why that is. Because they're saying it just because that's all they know. They may not know there's other ways to approach it, or different angles to look at, or different questions that they can ask their leadership to get to what they want, right? So it's my job to help them do that. And whether that's sending them an email with all of the tools and content and information to help them have easier conversations with their leaders, or just get on a call with their leaders, right? So that's always a harder thing to get, but if you can get it, that's wonderful.
And what is the typical obstacle that your prospects have in buying your product? Is it cost? Is it change? Is it internal?
Change is a big thing. A lot of our competitive products were pretty much priced the same. So it's not about that. It's really the change. And so, if a organization has been with a product, the same one, status quo, for 25 years, one, they haven't looked at anything else. And two, they're so comfortable with it. It's, just like you and me, when we use our cell phones. Why would we want to change? We know how it works. We know how the apps load, all that stuff. So it would be a lot to overcome an organizational change. So my role is to help them understand some of the support that we offer for this change, what it could change for them in their daily routine, and then how it could impact the organization as a whole. And so, obviously price and cost come up, but that's not the big internal challenge. It's really the change and getting the buy-in. So how can I help them have the conversations with the different care teams to get this overall buy-in, to get them on a demo call, to get them to understand what we're trying to bring to them, whether it's day-to-day, efficiencies in their process, or, that sort of thing. So I think that's the hardest part. But, for me, if a customer says they're just not ready to move forward yet, maybe they have, this is pretty common for everyone listening as well. Everyone has high priorities, right? And my product is probably not, everyone's busy, and my product is probably not the number one priority. But they came to me, or I called them and I was able to get in touch with them, and we agree that there's definitely a need for that change. I always try to ask them, do I have your permission to follow up with you? Can I follow up with you in 3 months? Can we reconnect? I think another thing that I do that's really helpful in my role as a salesperson is, Brian, if I have them on a call, and it could just be a cold call, not a warm call, like a blind cold call, and I have them engaged at some level, right? They may be saying, okay, I just need to get off the phone with her. But at any rate, I try to lock them into a meeting in the future. Even if that's 3 months from now. Okay, do you have your calendar open? Can you get into your calendar and tell me what's a great day in October, the week of the 12th? And they said, okay, yeah, it looks like I'm coming back from the conference. Oh, what conference? And then that leads you into other conversations. And then, okay, let's get back to the calendar, and then let's get it booked. And then while they're on the call, I send it. Oh, you got the calendar invite. Great. It looks like you accepted. I'm excited to talk to you in a few months, right? So I've already got them locked in. Now, locked in a calendar, right, is one thing versus actually getting them on the call, right? So everyone can accept a meeting. But I don't stop there. I follow up. How was your conference? What did you get out of it? What were you hoping to get out of it? And I keep that communication going until I have that next meeting with them. It's not a perfect formula, but it's worked for me in the past, and I kind of keep just using it.
Yeah. And were you this way when you were in customer support or success, or were you more laid back
Yes.
then?
No. And it's funny you asked me that. So I've been very enthusiastic, go mode, high octane energy all my life. So
Well,
both
right.
personally and professionally.
And a lot of salespeople are, but they're more on the talk about themselves. You're about asking about them. It's very different.
Yeah. So my goal when I'm talking to a customer, if I don't bring up the name of my product on the call, it was a success. I want to have a conversation with them. I want to learn about them. And usually by the end of the call, they're asking me, well, is there something that you sell that could help me with these challenges? I'm like, why, yes, there is. But you know what I mean? My goal is really to build a relationship with these folks, and both personally as well. When I was kind of prepping for, talking to you today, I was thinking, well, I'm really humble, and I don't really talk about myself too much. People ask me what I do, and I say I'm in sales, and I call people on the phone, and I reach out to them via email. And my family will say, well, why do you think you're good at it? Or why do you think you found success? And I say, well, because I'm just having conversations. It's just like I'm at the grocery store. It's no different. I'm calling in to see what's working for them, what they like about it, what gaps they're finding with it. And then, it in turn becomes, that conversation of how I can help and where we can go from here. But when I'm calling into these accounts, my goal is to not tell them anything about my product. My goal is to make it 100% about them. Tell me about yourself. And one of the things I wanted to share too is, I believe it was either you, Brian, that talked about this on one of your LinkedIn live videos, or a rep that you've interviewed, but it wholeheartedly works every single time. And that is when I call into prospects, whether it's cold or warm calls, I'll say, hey, Brian, it's Nikki. I just have a minute. Does that sound familiar?
It works,
It
doesn't it?
works. And it works every time. And people say, well, why does it work? I said, because it literally takes off the pressure. Hi, Brian, this is Nikki with sales, and I'm going to talk all about why my product is the best. No, hi, Nikki, I just have a minute. I'm telling you, I just have a minute. It's only going to take a minute of your time. And then all of a sudden the call turns into 30 minutes because that whole pressure of the sales call is taken off of them. And now they're interested and want to talk to me. And it just is unbelievable. And I tell people, even in my personal life, in my family and friends, use it for when you're calling the cable company. I just have a minute. It takes all the pressure off. I
And
love it.
yeah,
I use it all the time.
and the other person's curious. If you only have a minute and you're pressed for time, it must be important that you call me.
Exactly.
Raises
Exactly.
curiosity and urgency.
Exactly. And so they, in their mind at first, they're thinking, okay, yeah, I have a minute for you. No problem. What do you have for me? And then the conversation leads into 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and then getting a meeting with their team. And it just all kind of aligns. So yeah, I mean, I love that. And I talk about that all the time with my director. Another thing I wanted to share that, when you're trying to follow up with customers and maybe they go silent or something, one of my peers recently reminded me to try this approach, and it is just in like the subject line of an email, put did we break up? And that is exactly the result of that email. You're chuckling, Brian.
Yeah.
Because this customers doing the same thing, like, this is hysterical. Why would they send this to me? So it keeps it light, keeps the conversation going, and it works. They reach back out and say, yeah, sorry, Nikki, I got held up with other priorities. Yes, we're still in conversation. Let's connect on this date, right? Because we all get busy. We are inundated by thousands and thousands of emails. And so, it's important to just keep things light and not keep things so serious and formal, because we're all human. We all go through the day to day. We all get stressed out. We all have the same goals, right? So it just keeps it kind of light. So I thought that was fun to share because it works. I did it this week with some of my customers, and they responded and told me about why they haven't replied back and where they're at in the process and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And how do you keep this mindset going when you're under pressure to make your numbers? You're behind on this month or this quarter. You got to focus on Nikki, not them, right?
So, great question, Brian. I think in sales, people get so hung up on quotas. Like they have to meet their quota. And that comes across in a phone call, that kind of communication with the customer. For me, when I first got into sales, that's one thing I was kind of nervous about. How am I going to do with quotas? I never had to have like a number over my head. But at the end of the day, when I put my best foot forward for myself, for the company, for the product, for the customer, the customer's benefit is always number one. Things seem to align. Do I make my quota every single year? Maybe not, but there's years that I have great years. I'm not perfect, and so making your quota, an all-star salesperson is making their quota every year. Good for them. There's uncontrollable things that are out of our control, and you forecast to meet your quota and then you don't. But as long as I know in my heart that I've put my 120% foot forward, and I'm doing everything I can for the benefit of the customer, the company, and myself, then I'm comfortable with it. I don't stress out about it. I'm very ambitious, very motivated, high energy like this all the time. This doesn't go away. I mean, I wish I could just tell myself to go to sleep at night because I'm like, thinking about all the things I need to do the next day because I'm still in go mode. And I'm in go mode as a mom, personally, and also in go mode professionally. But, the biggest thing I would say to anyone coming into sales, just like I did, a few years ago, is don't get hung up on that. Because if you get hung up on that, that's what's going to drive your day to day. And you're not going to have success because you're going to be so pressured in your head. I got to meet the quota. I got to meet the quota. I got to meet the quota. Yep. For me, I just need to call these customers, talk to them, and see where we can get with them. And that, and maybe not everybody's like that, but for me, the quota, I wouldn't say it doesn't impact me. It doesn't impact me in a stressful setting. It definitely gets me competitive where I want to be like the best of the best, and I go after it, and I'm assertive, and I have perseverance and all that good stuff, and want to beat my peers and want to be better than them and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, that's not what gets me up in the morning is meeting that quota. It's talking to customers, solving problems with them. How can I help? What can I help them uncover that they don't even know or are aware of, that sort of thing. So, and that's personally and professionally. It's all about helping people. I feel like I've always been, a true servant, if you will. When I worked in a hospital here in Arizona, I was a director of service excellence, and that was again the same thing. I was trying to work with all the directors and help them help their patients. At the end of the day, it's about the patient, and I'm in the business because I believe my product will help the end outcome, and that's the patient, by putting a solution in front of our clinicians that can help them make the best decisions at the point of care with their patients.
And how about the rest of the sales process? How were you with that? It sounds like you're amazing at the conversation, getting the first call, eliciting the problem. But then there's the whole evaluation, technical sale, business sale.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I think I'm pretty strong at all of it. You know, yes, I have definitely my strengths are opening those conversations, and then of course working through the negotiations, the conversations. I think a lot of times with sales reps, they wear their heart on their sleeve, and that's not a bad thing. But when you're in negotiations, you have to keep very objective to what you're working towards, and so takes some skill as well. I wouldn't say that from the get go I was really good at it, but I've had a great mentor that's helped me do better with those types of conversations. For me, my strength is for sure the start of the sale and the close of the sale. But yeah, I just keep working on the middle of the sale and work with my director and my peers and the rest of the company in different tactics, ways on communication, different approaches, and all that good stuff. And that, I feel like that's a work in progress.
And do you see a lot of equals between like the nurse advocate role and sales? Because when you're dealing with patients who are mad, they want to go home, their family doesn't know whether they should go home or not, doesn't know how serious it is, don't know what they should do. Everybody's a fish out of water. And and,
Yes. Oh,
and you're
absolutely.
and you're the
Yeah,
person trying to
absolutely.
guide
Sorry,
them through that.
guiding them through the process, absolutely. And there's times when customers say to me, there could be several people within the organization that are on board to this, and they want to move forward, and then someone comes in, that they're what they say is their closer or their stopper or their gatekeeper, if you will. This wait a minute, why do we need this change? Everything we're doing right now is working. There's not any problems with the product we're using today. There's no problems it's creating. Like, why are we going to put all our staff through this change? And so, yeah, it's up to me. But it's important to note that it's not up to me to sell them on the product. I'm really trying to connect with this person, help them understand how we got to where we are today through the conversations and the collaboration with their team, and help move it along that way. It's not, oh, well, let me tell you about this product and why your team thinks it's so important. No, it's not about that. Let me tell you about the collaboration we've had, what the problems we see that this product is going to solve, how it's going to help you in your day to day. I know you've been out of the conversation. Welcome to the conversation. This is what it's going to do for you and your team in your environment, right? How does that sound? Do you think that's going to be helpful for you? And I think a lot of people, a lot of reps make the mistake of, oh, we have a new person, we just need to sell. No, welcome them in, catch them up to where we're at, and keep it going. Keep
And
the
you
train moving.
and you also pointed out what's their personal win in it. How will this help
Yes.
you out?
Yes, absolutely. Because they're looking at it like, this is going to really impact me because I haven't been in the conversations. I don't even know what you're doing, why you're changing. Everything's working. This is going to add more time to my day. I don't have this time. I've got other initiatives and priorities. Yes, 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 and yes. But let's understand what you do and what your process look like today and how this may help with that process. And absolutely, the airlines, the patient advocacy role absolutely put me in a great position to have those conversations, because if you can imagine, in the airlines, the flights are canceled and people are not happy, and they will voice it, and it's face to face voicing, right? And you need to keep your cool, calm, and collect, and be able to engage with that customer and make them feel at ease and bring that high volume octane level of anger down so that you can work with them and come up with a win for both parties, right? Same thing with the patient advocacy. it's not really even the patient you're dealing with. It's a family that there's an unknown. They're stressed out. They don't know, how they should feel, even after, numerous doctor conversations and next steps. There's just that anxiety, and that's totally normal. And it's normal in a sales world too, right? Yeah, their CFO is going to sign off on something, but then what? Or am I going to be supported? Is this just going to be thrown out there and here you go, have at it, and we're going to just rip and replace what you're currently using? No. So, it's my role to help them first understand what their internal process and challenges are, and then help them see how this is going to make it better for them. And once I get them to that point, then we just move along. But if it were a perfect world, sales would be easy and everyone would be making their quotas and making tons of money all the time. And I feel like, there are people that maybe are out there, but for me, it's never been about getting the sale. It's about connecting to people and learning about what they do to day, how we can help them and overall help their patients.
Great. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Nikki. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Brian, and I look forward to helping out and answering questions and connecting. I can never have enough connections. So if you want to connect with me, send me a request and I'm happy to connect. Thank you so much, Brian, for having me today.